Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Dano, aka Daniela. Wanted to make this video to respond to tired of this shit. I think that's yeah. You know, I want to make this video to respond to him because it's a lot. I believe he's not understanding where I'm coming from. With me saying that African Americans are Native Americans. And what I'm saying is that we are and we aren't at the same time. Now, see what he believes. What I think he believes is that African Americans and blacks of the Americas and the Caribbeans and all that stuff, that we are the same people as Native Americans that are on the reservations. Now, that's not true. That's not necessarily true. We share the same lineage. I'm going to say straight out the gate. We come from Israel. We are Yashala. That is our true origins. We descend from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. But, you know, along that way, especially after we established our kingdom, we know that the southern kingdom fell. The northern kingdom fell. They were scattered. And then later, the southern kingdom fell, and we were scattered for a second time. Mind you, this whole time, even while Israel was established, we had other kingdoms who descended from the Israelite kingdom, like the Phoenicians, for example, and many, many other peoples. We've been getting around the world way longer than whites want to give us credit for, because I'm gonna remind you about this later on, is that white people, with them, everything starts with them and ends with them. They don't like to give other people credit unless it's blatantly in front of your face. Now, if it's hidden truth, it's hidden because they hid it. But anyways, we all have origins in Israel. That's why I put Yasha'Allah, not African, or not African, but Yasha'Allah, because we are not the same. We're not Hamitic. We are not the same thing as most Africans. Now, don't get me wrong. Some Africans, especially Africans in the northern, especially the northwest part of Africa and West Africa, are our people. Not all West Africans are our people. You can sometimes even tell with their phenotypes. Now, don't get me wrong. There are some Africans in West Africa that look straight up like a Hamite and who are our people simply because of their father's lineage. But they mixed in with a lot of Africans. Now, it's important that I say that because, I'm not denying that Africans, West Africans are our people. A lot of them are. Some of them are, I'm going to say. Not all of them, but some of them. And they have very same origins as us. Now, I want to remind you that we are not the exact same thing as as the stereotypical Native American. We are the same people because we are all Yasha'Allah, but our stories became much different over the past hundreds, even thousands of years. Now, we have the same origin. We are the same people in that sense, that we do come from the same bloodline of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. We descend from the original tribes of Israel. Now, with that being said, and you know what, guys, I'm really going to have to make a video after I get back from my trip, to break everything down, with the sources and stuff like that, to show you guys. But, the Phoenicians have came here. They came to the Americas. There are there's evidence everywhere. There's artifacts everywhere showing that the Phoenicians made it here to the Americas. Now, the Phoenicians were an offshoot of the Israelites, black Hebrew Israelites. They were known for their maritime travels. They were known for traveling across the sea. They were a seafaring people. History shows this. And they show the different routes of the Phoenicians. They made it to the Americas. They made it to South America. They made it to the Caribbean. They even made it to parts of North America, the southern parts. But they mainly, excuse me, excuse me, they mostly settled into Central America. These were some of the first people These were some of the first people who made it to the Americas. They were the ones who settled into Mesoamerica, into the Mexico area. They were the ones who settled into the Nile Valley or wherever the hell they want to call it. Not Nile Valley, but I forget what they call that area. I can't think of the name right now. But they were the ones who settled into the coastal areas of Central America. Those big stone heads that you see, that was made long before the Aztecs existed. That is very sophisticated art. Look at the headdressing that the guy is wearing. You know, that's not no, lost in the forest tribal people type of wear that he's wearing. But those were the Phoenicians. That statue that was carved out, those giant heads were Phoenician people. Those were the first people who settled into Mesoamerica. And over the years, over centuries, other people settled in too. Because, mind you, many people already knew about, well, let me say this, the Phoenicians were the first people who to really establish a type of kingdom there, and they were the ones, their genetics are still in the people to this modern day. So they went there, and they were the first people to establish a foothold and to stay there. While there were people who came there before, like the Egyptians. Tons of fucking evidence that the Egyptians knew about it. They were some of the first people who knew about it. They were basically the ones who broke us into, hey, there's a new land over here that we know nothing about. This was the Egyptians. Now they used it as kind of like they kind of used it as like a little offshoot place too. But they didn't really settle it. Settle the land and stuff and build, cities and stuff like that. They just used it as kind of like a camp. I don't really know how to put it, but they knew about it, and that's how a lot of other people knew about it. King David, for example. King Solomon knew about the land, and even the king of Assyria knew about the land. And when the king of Assyria, when he took the people from Israel, the northern kingdoms, and enslaved them, in the Bible, it says that he took them to the land where no man dwelt. And that land is the Americas. Now, mind you, when they travel, they reach many places along the way. There's different theories on how they got here, how he got here. Some people say he took the Atlantic route. Some people say they took the Pacific route. But I believe that they probably took both, but also, the Polynesians, the Pacific Islanders and stuff like that, they made it to the Americas. There's artifacts and there's proof that these people made it, and even, African tribes from West Africa and South Africa have shown to make it here. There's a fucking current that brings you off the west coast of Africa to the east coast of South America. So come on. People didn't just start selling ships across the ocean when Christopher Columbus did. Now, my main point in making this video is that African Americans, yes, we are direct descendants of Aboriginal people, but not in the sense that you think. Like I said before, we are not the exact same thing as Native Americans, what we call modern day Native Americans, because modern day Native Americans are a mixture of different people. Now, mind you, these people, they had different features. A lot of them had straight hair, a lot of them had curly hair, also had negroid hair, and even had very similar features to modern day Negroes. My book that I showed you guys, it even talks about how their physicality actually changed from mixing with white people. Now, modern day Native Americans, they are mainly a mixture of Black Hebrew, some African, Asian. The Asian genetics came a little bit later than everything else, the Black Hebrew and African. Those are the first two genetics that they had here. Pacific Islander. I already said Asia. Asia came later. And more recently, white genetics. So these people are a mixture, even though their lineage goes all the way back to Israel, Gadites, and other tribes from the Northern Kingdom. Sorry, I have to clear my throat real quick. Yeah. So, anyways, they came from the other northern tribes from the tribe of Israel. Um, but they're a mixture. This is why they are black skinned. Some of them even had curly hair. Um, but they look different from Negroes, Black Americans. Now, Black Americans, yes, we have been here for about 1,500 years. We've been here for I would say about 1,000 years before whites even arrived in the Americas. They like to say that we only been here for about like 400 to 500 years. That's not true. We were here way longer than that. 400, 500 years is when our slavery started here in the Americas. We were here way before that. Now, what I'm saying is that we are indigenous or aboriginal in the sense that we have been here longer than whites, but we are not aboriginal in the sense that we are the original inhabitants. Now, modern day black people, we are descendants of the blacks who were part of the Moorish Empire. Now, when the Moorish Empire came into power in the early 700s, they established powers all over, I wouldn't say all over the world, but in a lot of places in the world. It wasn't just Europe. They established powers in Central Asia. They established power in India. India is kind of part of Central Asia. Um, they established power also in the Americas. They even had colonies in the Americas. It wasn't just Europe and parts of Africa. It wasn't just that, or the Middle East, whatever you want to call it. They also established colonies here in the Americas, and that's where a lot of black people descend from. The people who were here, and after the Moorish Empire fell in 1492, the same fucking year Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue. That's when the remainder of the black Moors fled to the colonies that they had, which they had colonies in West Africa, North Africa, and they also had colonies in the Americas. And that's where a lot of black people descend from, like the Yamasi. This is why a lot of culture, when you study a lot of the different cultures of Native Americans, this is why the culture is so different when you go to region to region. When you look at the Native American culture in the southeastern parts of the United States, it's very different from the Native Americans in the northeastern part of the United States. I would say like the Midwestern part of the United States, because the same type of indigenous groups, like the Yamasi, who were a descendant. When you look at the clothes of, when you look at a lot of clothes and a lot of the buildings, the houses that they built, especially the clothes, when you look at them, of the indigenous people of the southeast or the eastern part of the United States, they wore very similar clothes to Moors. They had the turbans, they had the fringes, which stems from Israelite culture. When you look at that, they dress very differently from the Plains Indians, and they even look different. They look significantly different from the Plains Indians. And a lot of people don't understand that the tribal wars that Native Americans were having weren't tribal wars over small, little issues. They were basically like tribal wars for ethnic cleansing and stuff like that, because even though the Moors came over much later, they were mixing and they were cohabitating with the peoples who were already here, but they're not indigenous in the sense that they were the original people who were already here. We came much later, but we did share cultures and we did cohabitate, we did mix with them, but not to a great extent like everybody thinks, or like, a lot of these brothers and sisters who are waking up to who they really are, not to what they think, because they believe that Black Americans are just straight up Native Americans are the same. They believe that we're the same people as the people who are on the reservations, and that's not true. Yeah, we have been here for thousands of years. We've been here for about 1,500 years. But um, the people who are on the reservations, those people, they descend from people who have been here for almost 2,000 years. So they've been here way longer than us. They've been here for almost 2,500 years here in the Americas. While our people, African Americans, are indigenous ancestors to the Americas. We only been here for about 1,500 years, so they've been here almost twice as long as we have. And during that time, they did a lot of mixing on their travels here and while they were here, because there's a lot of different groups of people. Now, the Native Americans who are on the reservations, some of them do have origins in the southeast, because even though we settled the southeast, there were still tribes that were already here that were cohabitating with us over there. So that's why some of them can trace their ancestry to tribes over on the east. But we have to remember that they're not the same. A lot of them don't share a bulk of the genetics of the same Moorish descendants that were here that we descend from. A lot of those people, especially a lot of the Plains Indians, like the Lakota, the Blackfoot, a lot of those tribes, they descend from the same people. They're basically the same people as the people in Mesoamerica. Like the Aztecs, the Mayan, stuff like that. Those are the same people. Now, when you go to the West Coast, there's a lot of different people out there. A lot of people who settled the West Coast, like California, and even parts of like Washington, parts of Arizona, stuff like that. A lot of those people out there, they were also black, because, mind you, this whole country was black. Even all the way down to South America, they were all black people, but they were different types of black people. Now, the people who settled the West Coast were a different type of black people. They weren't Moors. They weren't the mixtures of Native Americans who've been here for almost 2,500 years. They're not them. These people were descendants of Pacific people, Pacific Islanders, like modern day Hawaiians, and maybe even Micronesians and stuff like that. But a lot of them were descendant from people who come from Hawaii, because remind you that at one time Hawaiians were black. If you go back and look at the early pictures from like the early 1900s, like even King Kamehameha, when you look at him, he was a black guy. This guy had dark brown skin. He had an afro. He had features of not of a white person, but of black people. Even though they did look different, they did have their own look, but they were another group of black people. And people fail to realize that black people, that all black people aren't the same, that there's different types of black people. But those were the people who settled the West Coast. And there's even research to show that they even made it to basically to all parts of America, parts of Mesoamerica, and even parts of South America. What was that island called? Solomon Island, or Easter Island, or Solomon Island? I can't remember. But the island that has the big old giant stone heads. Those people were Polynesian, and they made it all the way to the Americas. But modern day Native Americans are descendants of those people also. And I believe that those people, like Queen Khalifa, she was descendants of the black Polynesians. And I believe that the last remaining of them out there were just the last remaining of those people who did not mix. But like I said, the Asians, they came much later. Like the Inuits, they are indigenous in the sense that they've been here way before white people, but they are more recent than any indigenous people here in the Americas. But yeah. So, like I said before, it's kind of like a tricky answer. It's kind of like a weird answer, because you can't really say that, yeah, we are indigenous in the sense that we're the same as this guy right here, in the books that I showed. We can't say that we're them necessarily, but we have been here longer than white people, and we did establish culture and civilizations here before whites arrived. Now, when whites arrived, because they came here, they sailed in 1492 and came here to the Americas, The reason why they did that was because they had pushed the Moors out of Europe. In 1492, they pushed. Excuse me. In 1492, they pushed the Moors out of Europe, and during that same time, they wanted to get rid of every one of us because we had lost power. They're like, okay, since they lost power, what we're going to do, we're going to go and round them all up, and we're going to enslave them, and that's exactly what they did. This is why you can't find a single slave ship anywhere in the world. You can't find a slave ship. The only slave ships that you can find are fake little replicas that they have inside of museums, and they will tell you that they're fake. It's so ironic how you cannot find a single slave ship, and it does not make any sense for black. It doesn't make it. The whole slave narrative makes no sense. Take 3 months to go across the sea, stacked on top of each other, people pissing, puking, and shitting on each other, and they somehow made it. That makes no sense because we know that the bubonic plague and a lot of plagues that happened in antiquity, we know that a lot of those wiped out thousands of people just from simple shit like just like a simple code or even just a dirty type of lifestyle killed thousands of people. Yet these people spent 3 months on a damn boat shitting, laying on top of each other, eating, and they made it. Fuck out of here. And slave ships were actually small, according to historians. Slave ships were very small. They weren't big ships, which is weird, right? Very weird. You can't find these ships anywhere. Yet you can still find pirate ships. You can still find pirate ships that are just as old as slave ships, supposedly, but you can't find slave ships. That makes no damn sense at all. That makes no sense. So the whole slave narrative, it did not happen like that. What happened was that they pursued us. After the Moorish Empire fell in Europe, we fled to our colonies. We fled to North Africa. We fled because that's where we had our strongest holds, was in North Africa. We fled to West Africa. We fled to the Americas. And a bulk of us Moors were in the Americas. This is why they came here in 1492. Christopher Columbus sailed out. Spain sailed out because they wanted to finish the damn job. They came over to the Americas, and that's when the whole fucking story begins. For them, for white people. This is why time starts in the Americas when Christopher Columbus came. Because everything, like I said before, everything starts and ends with them. They take credit for everything. But, like I said, I'm going on vacation soon. And sometime after coming back from vacation, I'm just going to get everything out. And, just show you guys, like, how I came to this conclusion. I mean, I'm not the only one who came to this conclusion. There's many people out here who know the history. They know the truth. But like I said, we're not, because he's trying to say, tired of shit. He's trying to say, oh, you're an idiot because you're not African. I never said I was African. I don't know where he got that from. I never said I was African. I don't know where. To tell the truth, I don't know where the fuck he got that from. Yeah, then I told him like, damn, that's harsh, man. But he said the reason why I responded to you the way I did is because you were extremely disrespectful when you said that you're not one of those blacks who deny who you are because we claim American origins. Okay, so what he's trying to say is that I claimed African, which I never did. I never claimed African. He's trying to say that I deny our American origins. But I'm not. See, what he has to realize is that nobody originated in America. Even the ancestors of the Native Americans who were sitting on the reservations, they didn't originate in America. They originated in other places. Now, we did not originate here. We are indigenous in the sense that we've been here for 1,500 years, but we are not the same thing as the Native Americans sitting on a reservation for the most part. And we were not the first peoples here. I think that's the main point I need to stress. We were not the first peoples here. There were already established cultures here way before the Black Moor Native Americans arrived. Like the Yamasee. We came much later. The southeastern tribes, we came much later. Maybe I need to stop saying southeastern. but that's where a lot of the strong populations were in the southeast, because they were mainly pushed down to the southeast. Even though we were already in the southeast, but a lot of us got pushed down from the southeast to the southeast. But yeah, we weren't the first peoples here. So yeah, we're indigenous. We had established cultures here. We had established indigenous cultures here. But we were not the first people here. We were here way before whites, but we were not the first people here. Yeah, we're indigenous in the sense that we've been here for almost 2,000 years, but we were not the first people here. Yeah, we have our own cultures here, cultures that have been developing and became very unique on its own for 1,500 years. But then when slavery came, we were enslaved. There's books that show this. It was funny because even in my school one time, I read about the Yamasi, and I'm like, wait, why did the Yamasi and certain other tribes get enslaved, but other tribes weren't enslaved? Why were they now classified as Negroids? And I learned this in school, in high school. It was strange. That was the first time that I was like, wait a minute, something's not right. And I really started researching it. You know, they actually took Native Americans and made them into slaves and said, hey, you're no longer a Native American anymore. You're a Negro. And see, the reason why they did that is because, in truth, we are Negro. And Negro is not African. Don't get that twisted. Negro is not African. Do not get that twisted. But anyways, it was like, you're not Negro. I mean, you're not Native American. You're a Negro. And the reason why they did that was because they were rounding up all the fucking Moor descendants here in America. Now, even though, because when the Moorish Empire fell, Moors fled here. And the Moors who fled here weren't the ones that had been here for 1,500 years. Or for 1,000 years already. They still had the same traditions and customs as they did over in Europe. So those were the first people who were rounded up. They were trying to, cohabitate with the Moors who were already here, who had already established this Native American culture here. They tried to blend in with them, but that didn't work. They rounded them up, and then after that, they was like, you know what? We're gonna get the rest of you motherfuckers who are of Moorish descent, you Native Americans of Moorish descent, and we're gonna round y'all up and enslave y'all too. That's why they enslaved those Native Americans who we descend from. So yeah, it's very, very, very deep. It's deeper than most people think. History is never just one-sided. History is never so simple. History is very, very complicated. And that's what makes it so interesting. That's why I love it so much. Because it is deep. It's like one of those video games that have, multiple ways you can get to one point. I love it, man. I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed with history. But it's deep. It's deep. It's not as simple as people think, A lot of these videos where they say that Native Americans are black and that what do they say? African Americans ain't African. Those videos, they try to make it seem so simple, but it's not as simple as you think. They try to make it seem like we are the descendants of these people, and these people are the Plains Indians. So the people that I showed you in the book, they're Plains Indians. Most of them are, and we don't descend from them. We descend from the eastern tribes. These are the Plains Indians. These are basically the same people who came from Mesoamerica. That's basically where their origins are, Mesoamerica. And mind you, that even in South America, the tribes down there, they're not all the same people. Because like I said, the Moors, we settled the Caribbean also. We settled the Caribbean Sea, which is part of, even parts of Central America and parts of South America. This is why you find different looks of indigenous people. A lot of people in the Himalayas, the Andes, are very different looking from the indigenous people down in the Amazonian basin and stuff like that. They look very different. You can find different looks. You can find indigenous people with curly hair with Negroid features, and people will try to say like, oh, Those people are mixed with African. No, the fuck they're not. I remember I saw this story a few years back where uh, these two Native American boys uh, encountered like this racist guy. I guess he was trying to beat them up or something like that. They told their little story. I guess he was trying to kill him or whatever. And when I saw the father, because their mother is white, you didn't think that their parents was white, and then one of their parents was black, but because they look like the stereotypical Native American. This is why I say that Native Americans on the reservations, they're racially mixed people, and they have white heritage. This is why a lot of them look like what you would call Mexicans or whatever, because a lot of them have white blood, just like Mexicans do. But these two boys, they look like the stereotypical Native American on a reservation. The reason why is because their mother was white and their dad was a black Native American, and he was from South. He was from, I can't remember, but he was from some country in South America. And when you looked at him, you could tell he was Native American, but he had black skin. He was basically one of the last remaining few of the black skinned Native Americans, you know. But yeah, life is complicated and so is history. But yeah, that's what I have to say for now. I'll try to make another video sometime soon. Like I said, I will try to make that one video probably within the next couple weeks, probably next month or so. But yeah, history is deep, guys. Y'all really need to study. I mean, the sources are out there. It's just a matter of taking the time to go out there and search, you know, and study. I mean, there's books out there. There are websites that have books, and have all types of sources and stuff like that. Man, it's deep. It is deep. But anyways, that's all I have to say. Talk to you guys later. Peace.